What is up, guys? This week, the training tips video is going to be a little different than it has been in the past, notably because we're not really training, kind of. So gyms are closed this week, at least the one that I normally do my videos at. They're doing renovations at it, and they also just shut it down over the holiday. And that means every other gym that I could go to in the area to film at is also crazy because all of the people who are at that gym are going to the other ones. So this week, we're doing something a little bit different, and that doesn't mean it's any less important than any of the other training tips. I would argue this is probably more important than some of the other tips that I've given already. Generally speaking, cardio is something that everybody should be doing. Whether you're doing this, walking on a step mill for 20, 30 minutes a day, doing active cardio like HIIT, moderate intensity cardio, even like low intensity steady state, that's more than just walking, like more than just getting your step count up. Tons of different types of cardio you can do. But more importantly, you should be doing it. A lot of people neglect it, especially in the off season or in a growth phase. They think they shouldn't be doing cardio, or they think they need to cut way back on cardio. And you're gonna cut down on it, sure. But you can also switch your modalities up so that you're doing things that are more beneficial based on what phase you're in. I'm gonna go through this kind of example by example here. In a growth phase or an off season where you are trying to add size, you are in a caloric surplus, you are eating in excess of food, you are, if you're an enhanced lifter, probably on quite a bit more anabolics than normal or than in a deficit phase. So you have all of these components, most notably food and anabolics, that are going to be causing your health markers to fall out of range much more quickly. And the most productive thing for growth is being able to keep yourself in that surplus for as long of a period of time as possible. If you're not doing cardio, you're significantly shortening that period of time from what you could have if you were doing it instead. The reason being, cardio can help keep all of those health markers in check and can also kind of help balance out some of that fat gain that you would otherwise see in that off-season or growth phase setting. When I say health markers, I mean blood pressure, insulin sensitivity, even your cholesterol. Those are all impacted by cardio, or they can be in a positive way. Not doing them means that those markers could potentially fall out of range much more quickly. So the goal of your growth phase is going to be growing for as long as possible, increasing food for as long as possible, and increasing your performance in the gym for as long as possible. And knowing that, we also have metrics that we can track that need to stay in range for that to be accomplished. Those metrics being the aforementioned blood pressure, your cholesterol levels, your insulin, and more specifically, your A1C and fasted blood glucose. Those are all very important to monitor, amongst other markers, to make sure that you are in good health to continue growing. If you don't do any cardio in your off season and you're putting in as much food as possible and you're 12 weeks in and your blood pressure looks like crap, your fasted blood glucose is now skyrocketing because you're just not accommodating for that much food, it makes it really hard to continue to push yourself in a growth phase in a productive way. Because once those markers start to go, you're just going to start adding more fat than is necessary and also putting yourself at more risk. So again, to go back to what I said initially with the goal of prolonging that growth phase as much as possible, we want to implement some form of cardio to help with those metrics. And what's the best form of cardio for that? Kind of depends. The best form of cardio is whatever you can fit into your schedule most easily that allows you to actually get the activity in. Some people, it's just not feasible to lift, balance their daily life, and then also get 30, 40 minutes in on a treadmill or on a bike in that same day. But if you're one of those people, you may find it easier to get in passive steps like this. You'll see I'm on a step mill. These are like $100 anymore. They're dirt cheap. You just buy some cheap Chinese one. And they're a great way if you live in an area that's either really hot or really cold. Like right now it's winter in most of the US, and here in Vegas it's a little chilly too. But I use this in the summer when it gets to be 120 degrees outside and I am not stepping outside to take a walk. I'll get on the step mill. Even just getting in, I don't know, 10 minutes after each of your meals. Say you eat 6 meals a day, do a quick 10-minute walk afterwards. That's 60 minutes of walking. I usually equate about 10 minutes of walking with 1,000 steps. So you can roughly say that's about 6,000 steps. You should get a step tracker of some sort, but that's a rough estimate you can use. And that's a great starting point. For most people, 6,000 or 8,000 steps in a day is about the bare minimum I want them to maintain when they are in a growth phase. That's a great, again, passive output, right? Is that going to have a huge impact on your cardiovascular health? Not necessarily, not as much as some other forms of cardio might, but it's still going to be more beneficial than nothing. Now, if you have time for dedicated cardio, which you probably should, then adding dedicated cardio on top is the next step. And I say on top, not in place of. Step count is a critical thing that you should kind of be maintaining as a baseline all year, if for nothing else, just because it allows you a metric that you can track your progress against. So if you know that you typically do 6,000 steps and one day, let's say you had meetings at work or something and you only got 2,000 and your weight jumped up the next day, you're not freaking out wondering why it happened. You're like, oh, it's because I didn't get my steps in because I couldn't. Not a big deal. I'm not going to worry about it. Anyway, point being to the cardio. Other types of cardio that you can do when you're doing dedicated cardio in an off season, my opinion, the most beneficial that you can add in is some type of high intensity interval training, HIIT cardio. If you don't know what that is, it's very high intensity cardio. Usually the way it's structured is you do some sort of like a sprint. That's just a lot of output in a short period of time, followed by a rest period where you're then going down to low intensity or moderate intensity cardio before starting your next sprint. I structure this usually on the bike, just like a stationary bike. I'll do 15 minutes total. I'll do 1 minute on and 1 minute off. So I'll go all out as hard as I can, complete and total sprint, cranking my heart rate up for 1 minute. After that minute, I'll just let myself catch my breath, relax, not fully relax, keep up a moderate pace, and then go again after that minute's over. Just rinse and repeat until you're at 15 total minutes, okay? That's great form of cardio in the off season because it has really high impact on your blood pressure and on your cardiovascular health, okay? Low intensity steady state will as well, but at the end of the day, I think that HIIT is a little bit more beneficial in an off season. Also because it kind of acclimates the body to the way that you're going to be lifting. When you are in a growth phase and you're pushing yourself very hard in the gym when you're lifting, you're going to be going all out to failure on your working set, and then you're going to be resting, and then you're going to be going all out to failure on your next set. It kind of mimics that structure in your cardio. So it's more specific to very high intensity training in the gym as well in terms of like weightlifting. And it can kind of have some carryover there in terms of the benefits that it has, again, for cardiovascular output. So that's my favorite in an off-season setting, okay? Just that and step count. And I would do, it varies a lot per person, but if you want something to start with, just do HIIT twice a week and then get 8,000 steps a day, minimum. It's a great baseline. And then for HIIT, when you're doing it, just do 15 minutes to start. So 30 total minutes of HIIT per week and then 8,000 steps per day. Great baseline for a growth phase that will keep you feeling good and should keep you pretty healthy. Obviously, certain people will need more, certain people will need less, because the other component of that is if you're doing too much cardio, you're probably putting all of your output that you would otherwise be able to put into the gym into that cardio. And you might just be overly fatiguing yourself. So you have to find a balance with that, okay? Now, low intensity steady state, just what most people will do, they'll hop on a treadmill or a bike and they'll do, I would say like 110 to 130 BPM heart rate range. That's what I consider moderate generally. They'll get on a treadmill or something and do that for 30, 45 minutes. That's fine too. You can do that. I just prefer doing HIIT. Again, because I think there are more benefits to it. And while it's harder, it's also just a shorter period of time you have to be dedicating to cardio. So that's a nice benefit there as well. With the benefits of cardio kind of out of the way, in a growth phase, I think we all understand why cardio is necessary for a deficit when you are losing weight, whether that's in a mini cut or a contest prep or any other situation. The reason you would do it is to move the cardio up, move your total output up, drive a deeper deficit without having to pull food down so that you lose weight at an acceptable rate. Pretty straightforward. Don't really need to linger on that, but I will say in a deficit, I usually will pull out my HIIT and I will put in the low intensity steady state, and then the step count goes up as well. That target ranges, and it obviously increases depending on the length of the deficit. You know, you might get to a point where you're at 15,000 steps a day plus 45 minutes of cardio a day. That's pretty extreme, but it is what is necessary for some people. Now, if you miss cardio, or using the holiday as an example here, you feel you need to overcompensate with cardio. This is something that a lot of people do. They have a bad relationship with how they're utilizing their cardio. And I think a lot of people view their cardio as extra caloric expenditure. So the mentality that a lot of people have is they get on a treadmill, they go to do their low intensity or moderate intensity cardio, and they look at that calorie count on the treadmill, and they're like, okay, I've burned 300 calories. That's an extra serving of mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving, or a slice of pie. Awesome. I'll do 30 minutes more, and that way I can have 2 slices of pie tomorrow, or whatever. Don't look at your cardio as a bank for your calories. Don't try and bank your calories against your cardio and overcompensate with cardio. Let yourself relax a little bit. If you're going to be enjoying the holiday, enjoy it. Eat. Take some time off. Relax. Don't stress about having to go in, because we all see these people. They go into the gym the day before Thanksgiving or a holiday, whatever it is, and they're doing like 3 hours of cardio because they think they have to compensate. Don't do that. Don't bother. Just let yourself relax. Don't overly fatigue yourself and then just end up overeating on the next day anyway. Just be mindful, eat what you want within reason, and then continue to do things normally. The flip side of that is when people just don't do their cardio. Let's say you're traveling for the holiday and you can't get your cardio in, you're in a car all day. You don't need to, again, overcompensate. The next day, if you missed 30 minutes of cardio, because you were traveling, don't go and do an hour the next day. Just do your normal 30 minutes. So many people want to overcompensate for work that was either missed or, again, they're banking calories against just because they feel like they have to. It's like they feel bad for missing it. You are allowed to have some guilt if that's what drives you, but don't make it so detrimental to yourself, and don't be so hard on yourself by forcing yourself to do it when it's really not necessary. Just get back in, do things as you normally would. Again, relax a little bit, okay? And if you're doing these things anyway, if the cardio is in place and you're consistent with it, you're training, you're doing your cardio, you're getting your step count in, you're not really gonna have any issues anyway. Not anything to worry about. A couple more things I want to touch on regarding cardio here. 1, the best time to do cardio. I get this question a lot from my clients. Should I do it in the morning, afternoon, after I work out? It doesn't matter. Whenever you can accommodate it, there are just a couple of considerations here. 1, never do it before you lift. You're pre-exhausting yourself, and not even pre-exhausting, that's a bad way to put it. You're just exhausting yourself for no reason. You should lift and then do your cardio afterwards, okay? That's still not perfectly ideal, but it's totally fine. There's no problem with it. The only reason I say that it's not ideal is it's a lot of fatigue that you're accumulating within that one period of time. If you're training, then doing your cardio, then going home and eating, I'd prefer you to do it in the morning, do your cardio in the morning, or do your cardio at night, separate from your training session entirely, just because it's kind of distanced. So find what works for you though. You can do it after the workout, that's totally fine. The other consideration here is if you're doing it at night, just be mindful of how close to your bedtime or when you normally go to sleep, you're doing that cardio. Because if you're doing it immediately before you go to bed, you're probably going to be a little bit overactive before you go to bed, and it's going to impact your sleep quality. So you don't want to do that. We definitely don't want to negatively impact sleep. If you're a person who's susceptible to that, or you would be doing your cardio right before bed, like within an hour or two of bed, if you had to do it at night, do it some other time, okay? For those reasons, I think most people will gravitate towards doing their cardio in the morning. But again, it's fine to do it at night. It's fine to do it post-workout. Just never do it pre-workout. Another question that I get a lot on cardio is, do I need to do it fasted? And the answer is no. There's arguably such a minuscule difference between fasted cardio and non-fasted cardio, if any at all. You don't have to worry about it, okay? You don't need to be doing fasted cardio. You can if you want. There's not gonna be a downside to it. So if you enjoy that, if it works for you, if you like doing it, because some people do, when I do my cardio in the morning, I do prefer to do it fasted, then do it. That's fine. No problem with that whatsoever. But don't stress about it. And if it doesn't work for your schedule, if there's no period, you can't do your cardio in the morning, let's say you have to do it at night and you're obviously not gonna be fasted, that's fine. You don't have to worry about it. So worry about getting the cardio in, not when you get it in or if you're fasted when you're doing it. Just make sure you get some in. And again, cardio is going to vary person to person. You're not necessarily going to have a one size fits all approach. Some people might prefer HIIT. Some people might prefer low intensity steady state. Really depends. And on that note too, I will say some people prefer certain modalities for their cardio over others. I tend to favor the elliptical and a stationary bike, but every once in a while I'll use the stair climber or the treadmill on an incline. Find what you like. You don't have to do the stair climber just because you think it's doing more for you. You don't have to do the bike just because you feel like it's doing more for you. Pick what you like, and as long as you're working in a relatively, in the same heart rate range, the same target heart rate range, you'll be fine. You're still getting in the work. Add your cardio into your routine if you haven't already. Make sure you're being consistent with it, especially in a growth phase or an off season where, again, your health markers could easily fall out of range, and reap the benefits. It allows you to stay in the growth phase longer. It allows you to drive your deficit further. It's just really good to have. And once you get used to it, you just kind of like doing cardio too. It just feels good. So put it in your routine if you haven't. And if you don't know how to implement it in your routine, check out the link below. I offer coaching. I can help you set all of that up and make sure you are training and doing your cardio exactly as you need to be. As always, guys, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on your notifications. Tell me what you want to see next week, all that stuff. I think next week we will finally get to rear delts and a couple of other movements once the gym is back open. But until next time, guys, take it easy.